Hey, nappy friend. Welcome back to our nappy little club. You're home now, and we saved your spot. Tonight, we are going back, way back. Before stock markets and newsletters, before frantic morning rushes and that desperate need for a liquid. Jump start to your day. We are journeying to a quieter, softer time, to a place of sun-warmed earth and the gentle, rhythmic chewing of goats. Imagine the feeling of ancient, untouched air, thin and sweet, filling your lungs. Picture a sky so vast and blue it almost hums. We are drifting to the highlands of 9th century Ethiopia, where our story begins not with a bang, but with a gentle, curious nibble. The world is about to change forever, but the man at the center of it has no idea. He's just a little concerned about his goats. You probably wouldn't survive the lack of modern plumbing or Wi-Fi, but here, in our little bubble, you're perfectly safe and exquisitely relaxed. So before your eyelids get too heavy, if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history, right? We'd also love to know where you're drifting off from tonight and what time it is in your corner of the world. Let us know in the comments below. It makes our nappy community feel just a little closer. So dim your lights, tune into the soft, comforting fan hum, and ease gently into tonight's journey, because you're now officially in nappy community. You're not just listening, you're an essential part of our nappy family, where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. You are Caldi. The name feels as natural to you as the ore wood of your herding. Staff, smooth and familiar in your palm. Your world is one of vast, rolling green hills under a generous African sun. This is the kingdom of Kaffa, a place that will one day lend its name to the very being you are about to discover. A little wink from history that you, of course, are blissfully unaware of. For you, it is just home. Your days follow a rhythm, as old as the mountains that cradle this plateau. You rise with the first cool, gray light of dawn, the air smelling of damp earth and the sweet breath of sleeping livestock. You lead your small flock of goats out to pasture, their little bells a soft, random, and constant music that scores your day. The life of a herder is a masterclass in stillness. You spend hours simply watching. You watch the slow, deliberate march of shadows as the sun arcs across the sky. You watch the clouds, puffy and white, drift lazily as if they, too, have nowhere particularly important to be. And mostly, you watch your goats. You know their personalities. The grumpy old matriarch with the torn ear, the skittish young one who shies away from its own shadow, the perpetually hungry one that always tries to eat your tunic. You know their habits, their contented sounds, their little quarrels. It's a slow, peaceful, and, let's be honest, profoundly boring existence. And that is why today is so very strange. It begins not with a sound, but with a lack of one. The usual afternoon lethargy, the time when your goats would find a shady spot under an acacia tree and doze, is absent. Instead, there is activity. You sit up from your comfortable spot, leaning against a sun-warmed boulder, and you notice it. They aren't just grazing. They are frolicking, not the usual playful butting of heads. This is different. They seem filled with a peculiar, joyful energy. They leap and bound, kicking their heels into the air with an uncharacteristic lack of coordination. It looks, for all the world, like they are dancing. You blink, wondering if the midday sun has finally cooked your brain. Goats do not dance. It's an undocumented fact, but one you feel fairly certain about. Your curiosity, a gentle and rarely awoken thing, begins to stir. You get to your feet, your staff making a soft thud on the dry earth, and you walk slowly towards the flock. Their bells are a chaotic jumble of sound now, a giddy, metallic laughter, As you get closer, you see where their attention is focused. They are clustered around a small grove of unfamiliar shrubs, ones you've likely passed 1,000 times. Without a second glance, they have dark, glossy green leaves and are laden with clusters of small, bright red berries, like tiny jewels scattered amongst the foliage. The goats are eagerly stripping the berries from the branches, showing them with a focused intensity dot. This is the source. This is the reason for their strange, manic happiness. A widely recognized historical fact is that Ethiopia is the birthplace of coffee, and this very region, Kaffa, gives the plant its name. Your story, the tale of Kaldi and his dancing goats, is the cornerstone of that origin, repeated for centuries in every coffeehouse and cafe to come. You shoo a few of the more enthusiastic goats away from a branch. You look closely at the berries. They are beautiful, plump, and alluring crimson. You pluck one from its stem. It's soft between your thumb and forefinger. What kind of magic is this? What plant gives a goat the urge to waltz? Hesitantly, you put the berry in your mouth. The taste is not what you expected. It's not sweet. It's bitter, earthy, and vaguely medicinal. You chew it thoughtfully. There's a strange, complex flavor there, but it's certainly not the taste of pure joy you saw in your flock. It's one of history's gentle ironies that one of the world's most beloved flavors began as something so uninviting. You are now standing at the heart of a little academic debate, though you wouldn't know it. Future historians will argue for centuries whether you Kaldi were a real person, or if this story is simply a beautiful myth, a tidy fable created to give a clean, simple origin to something that was likely discovered through messy, anonymous trial and error over generations. But as you stand there, with the sun on your face and a half-chewed berry on your tongue, you feel very real indeed. The story is just better with you in it. It's cozier dot as the afternoon begins to wane. You notice a change in yourself. The usual sleepiness that descends upon you like a warm blanket is gone. Your mind feels clear, not racing, not dancing like your goats, but sharp. The edges of the leaves on the trees seem more defined. The distant mountains feel closer. The air itself seems to vibrate with a quiet, focused energy. You feel awake in a way you have never felt before. You look at your flock, now calming down, into a state of happy contentment, and you look at the handful of red berries you've gathered. You don't understand what they are. You have no words for this feeling, no concept of stimulants or caffeine. You only know that on a profoundly ordinary day, you have stumbled upon something extraordinary. The sun begins to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, and you gather your strangely peaceful flock to head home, your mind quietly buzzing, the secret of the dancing goats held safe in your pocket. You walk the familiar path home as twilight deepens, the air growing cool around you. The goats are subdued now, their strange energy faded, but your own mind remains a marvel of quiet clarity. The world feels sharp, present, and new. The handful of red berries in the leather pouch at your hip feels like a secret, a warm spot of captured energy. Sleep, you realize, is not coming to you tonight. Not the heavy, dreamless sleep of a herder, anyway. But this feeling, it is not frightening. It is calm. It is focused. You know you have stumbled upon something beyond the simple world of rocks and goats and weather. And in your world, when you encounter a mystery that feels bigger than you, you take it to the men who spend their lives contemplating the mysteries of God and creation. You take it to the monastery the next morning, with the sun still low and the dew still clinging to every blade of grass. You guide your flock to their usual pasture, and then make your way to the ancient stone structure perched on a nearby hill. The monastery is a place of profound quiet, a stark contrast to the open, windswept world you inhabit. As you pass through the heavy wooden doors, the air changes. It grows cooler, thicker, smelling of cool stone, melting beeswax, and the faint, sweet perfume of incense that has seeped into the very walls over centuries. The chaotic music of your goat bells is replaced by a silence so deep you can hear the soft scuff of your own leather shoes on the flagstones and the distant, melodic drone of a single voice in prayer. You find the abbot in the scriptorium, a man whose face is a roadmap of deep lines etched by decades of devotion and contemplation. He looks up from a heavy, hand-copied book, his eyes old and tired, but sharp. You bow your head respectfully and begin your story. You speak of the day before, of the unnatural energy, the joyful, chaotic dancing of your flock. His expression remains placid, unimpressed. Animals are simple creatures, prone to strange whims. But then you tell him about your own experience. The clarity, the absence of fatigue, the way the world seemed to snap into focus. You pull the small pouch from your belt and pour the bright red berries onto the heavy oak, table between you. The abbot's eyes narrow. He leans forward, not with curiosity, but with suspicion. He picks up a single berry, rolling it between his thumb and forefinger. He sees the unnatural energy you described, not as a gift, but as a temptation. In his world of discipline and control, this kind of wild, unearned vigor is the work of something mischievous, something unholy. This is the devil's work, he declares, his voice low and certain. He sees your wide-eyed wonder as the naivete of a simple man being tricked by a dark power hiding within a beautiful fruit. To demonstrate his piety, and perhaps to save your soul from this crimson temptation, he snatches the pile of berries from the table. With a swift movement, he turns and flings them into the glowing embers of a nearby brazier, the only source of warmth in the cool stone room. You watch, dismayed, as the berries hiss and crackle in the heat. A foolish end to your great discovery. But then, something magical happens. This is the eccentric, happy accident upon which so much of history turns. As the berries begin to blacken and char, they release their true secret. A plume of smoke rises from the brazier, but it carries no foul, demonic stench. Instead, an aroma begins to fill the room. It starts as a faint, grassy smell, but it deepens, transforming into something rich, nutty, and impossibly beautiful. It's a scent that speaks of warm earth and sunshine, of something deeply comforting and wonderfully complex. It is, without a doubt, the most heavenly smell that has ever graced the ancient stones of this monastery. The abbot freezes, his hand still outstretched. His certainty wavers, replaced by pure astonishment. The scent is intoxicating. Other monks, drawn from their silent prayers and labors by the extraordinary aroma, begin to drift into the room, their faces filled with a shared, quiet awe. They gather around the brazier, breathing it in. How could something condemned as evil produce a smell so divine? Overcoming his shock, the abbot uses a small iron poker to rake the now blackened and shrunken beans from the fire. They are hard and brittle, no longer soft berries, but something new. Curiosity has now completely replaced piety. The abbot instructs a younger monk to crush the strange roasted beans between two stones. The resulting grounds are coarse and dark. He then calls for an ewer of hot water, the same water they use for their humble evening broth. He pours the steaming water over the crushed beans, and the liquid that filters through is dark, almost black, and steaming with that same magnificent aroma. The first cup of coffee has been brewed. Now comes the test. The abbot, as the spiritual leader, must be the one to taste it. He raises the simple clay cup to his lips, the other monks watching in breathless silence. He takes a sip. The bitterness is there, sharp and surprising. But underneath it, it is that rich, roasted flavor, and the aroma fills his senses. And then, within minutes, he feels it. The familiar weariness that perpetually settles in his bones, the heavy drowsiness that makes the midnight vigils a true test of faith. It begins to lift. His mind, so often clouded by fatigue, becomes clear and sharp. Just as you described Dot in that moment, he understands. Historians will later debate whether it was these Ethiopian monks or the Sufi mystics of Yemen who first truly harnessed coffee for religious purposes. They will point to records of Yemeni Sufis using a brew called kahwa to stay awake for their nighttime dhikr rituals. But here, in this quiet room, this feels like a private revelation. The abbot looks at the dark liquid in his cup, then at you, the simple goat herder, and a slow smile spreads across his ancient face. This is no devil's fruit. This is a gift from God. This is an aid for devotion, a tool to help a mortal man reach for the divine without the weight of his own tired body pulling him back to earth. That night, for the first time, the monks do not struggle to stay awake for their prayers. They chant with clear voices and focused minds, each holding a warm cup of the dark, miraculous brew that turns a midnight vigil into a joyous celebration. Centuries have passed, soft and quiet as sand drifting over dunes. The memory of a goat herder named Kaldi and his dancing flock has faded from living memory into the realm of cherished legend, a story told to children. The world has turned many times, and the secret of the energizing berry has traveled. It has crossed the Red Sea, carried on quiet winds, and in the hulls of small trading dhows. You are no longer Kaldi, the discoverer. You are Amir, the gatekeeper. And your home is Mocha, the jewel of Yemen, the first great coffee capital of the world. Not your world is not one of green hills and cool mountain air. It is a city of sun-baked earth and whitewashed buildings that shimmer in the relentless heat. The air you breathe is thick with the scent of salt from the sea, the sharp tongue of exotic spices piled high in the souk, and weaving through it all, the rich, powerful, and deeply lucrative aroma of roasting coffee. This is the scent of your city's power. This is the smell of money. You are a merchant, a proud member of a guild that oversees the world's entire supply of kahwa, the wine of Araby. The story of your ancestor Kaldi is a whispered piece of your family's heritage, a founding myth that gives you status in this bustling port. Your days are spent not in quiet contemplation, but in careful, meticulous commerce. You watch as caravans of camels, laden with heavy burlap sacks, arrive from the terraced mountainsides inland where the coffee shrubs are now painstakingly cultivated. But your most important job, the sacred trust of your entire guild, is to enforce the great secret. The historical fact that defined this era was Yemen's absolute monopoly on coffee. No fertile bean was ever to leave the port of Mocha. You oversee the process yourself. The raw, green-gray beans are either parched on vast iron pans or briefly boiled in water, just enough to render the seed within sterile. Only then are they ready for the eager traders from Venice, Alexandria, and the burgeoning Ottoman Empire who crowd your docks. Their purses heavy with gold dot. It's an irony that doesn't escape you in quiet moments. An entire industry built on guarding a secret that was first discovered by accident. You enforce this rule with a quiet diligence, knowing that your city's prosperity depends on it. But you know, as you watch the foreign ships with their strange flags and unfamiliar languages, that desire is a powerful force. They don't just want to buy your coffee. They want to grow it. The secret cannot last forever. The social life of the bean has evolved too. It is no longer just a tool for holding men. Here in Mocha, and in cities across the Arab world, it has created its own social sphere. In the afternoons, when the heat is at its most oppressive, you retreat to a kava khani, a coffeehouse. Here, the world slows down. Men of all stations, merchants, poets, scholars, and soldiers lounge on plush cushions in dimly lit rooms. The air is thick with smoke from hookahs and the constant, comforting smell of brewing coffee, which is prepared here in a completely different way. It's thick, dark, unfiltered, and often spiced with cardamom. It is served in small, handleless cups, and it is meant to be sipped slowly. Here, business deals are sealed with a quiet handshake, poetry is recited, and chess games are played. Out over hours. This is the new Temple of the Bean, a place of community and conversation. Historians will one day debate the very name of your city, Mocha. They will argue whether the name became synonymous with all coffee for a time, or if it referred to a specific high-quality bean from these shores, creating the mocha flavor profile we think of today. For you, it is simply the center of the universe, the only place that matters. And it is a place filled with whispers of espionage. You hear stories. A Venetian trader caught trying to hide a small, live coffee plant in his luggage. An Ottoman official offering a fortune for a single sack of unboiled beans. Most persistently, you hear the cautionary tale of a man named Baba Budin. He was, the story goes, a revered Sufi saint from India who made a pilgrimage to Mecca. On his way home, he passed through your city and tasted coffee for the first time. He understood its power, its potential. Knowing he could never buy a fertile bean, the legend says he strapped 7 of them, a sacred number to his chest, hidden beneath his robes, and walked calmly through the city gates. The eccentric image of a holy man smuggling contraband. On his belly, successfully breaking your monopoly and planting the seeds that would create the vast coffee plantations of India, is told as both a warning and a quiet joke in the coffeehouses. It's a reminder that a secret this good is destined to get out as evening falls. You stand on the docks, watching the ships bob gently in the harbor. The setting sun turns the sky to a dusty rose. The roasting houses are working late, their fragrant smoke a comforting blanket over the city. You look at the sacks being loaded onto a massive Ottoman galley bound for Constantinople. You have done your job. The beans are sterile. The secret is safe for one more day. But as you watch the ship disappear over the horizon, you feel the pull of the inevitable. You are not the end of this story. You are just a bridge. The journey of the bean is just beginning, and its thirst for new lands is as strong as the thirst of the men who drink it. The long sea journey from Mocha is a story in itself, a tale of wind and waves, of weeks turning into months. The sacks of sterile, roasted beans that you, as Emir, watched disappear over the horizon have finally reached their destination. They have been tossed by storms, baked in the sun, and traded through countless hands until, at last, they have arrived in a world of persistent drizzle and coal-gray skies. The secret of the bean has reached England. You are no longer Emir, the merchant, prince of a sun-drenched port. You are Arthur, a scholar, and you live in the sprawling, chaotic, and perpetually damp city of 17th century London. Dr. London is a symphony of noise and smell. The air, thick with the smoke of 1,000 coal fires, carries the scent of the River Thames, the aroma of bakeries, and the less than pleasant odor of unpaved streets. Your ears are filled with the constant clatter of horseshoes and iron-rimmed carriage wheels on cobblestones, the cries of street vendors hawking everything from oysters to pies, and the ever-present murmur of a city teeming with life. It is a world of energy and enterprise, but also one of loud, boisterous taverns where ale and wine flow freely, clouding minds and loosening tongues, often to the detriment of serious thought or business. Today, however, you are seeking something different. You have heard whispers of a new kind of establishment, and a new kind of drink. You find yourself in St. Michael's Alley, a narrow lane in the bustling heart of Cornhill. There, you see a simple wooden sign. It doesn't advertise a familiar alehouse or inn. It bears a single curious word: It is the establishment of a man named Pasqua Rosi, a native of Smyrna. And it is, as a well-documented historical fact, the very first coffeehouse in London, opened in 1652. You push open the heavy oak door and step out of the clamor of the street into another world entirely. The first thing that strikes you is the smell. It is utterly alien. It is not the sweet, malty scent of a brewery, nor the savory aroma of a cookshop. It is a powerful, pervasive scent, toasty, nutty, slightly burnt, and somehow invigorating. It's the smell of the beans that made the long journey from Yemen, now being roasted over a fire right here in London. The second thing you notice is the sound. It is not the roar of drunken arguments or bawdy songs you'd find in a tavern. It is a low, civilized hum. The murmur of quiet conversations, the soft rustle of printed news sheets, and the gentle clinking of ceramic on wood. The room itself is long and narrow, filled with dark wood tables and benches. It is warm, a welcome refuge from the London chill, and dimly lit by the flickering orange glow of candles, which makes the steam rising from the strange, dark liquid in every man's hands seem to dance in the air. You approach the counter, feeling a bit like an explorer in a new land. You order a dish of coffee, the common term for a serving. What is placed before you is a small earthen bowl, much like one you'd use for soup, filled with a hot, black, oily-looking liquid. There is no milk, no sugar. This is coffee in its purest, most intimidating form. You take a seat on a long bench, sharing a table with a man intently reading a pamphlet. You raise the dish to your lips. The first sip is a shock to the system. It is intensely bitter, with a flavor some have uncharitably compared to soot or old leather. There is none of the comforting sweetness of ale or the familiar fruitiness of wine. It is a challenging, medicinal taste. A gentle, ironic smile plays on your lips. It seems London's newest craze is a drink that tastes like a punishment. But then, after a few more cautious sips, you feel it. A gentle warmth spreads through you, chasing away the dampness from the street. And more profoundly, a familiar fog of midday lethargy begins to lift from your mind. Your thoughts, usually a jumble of scholarly concerns and daily worries, seem to arrange themselves into neat, orderly lines. It is the same feeling of focused clarity that Caldi felt in the highlands and the monks felt in their monastery, now blooming in the mind of a London scholar. Your eyes fall upon a handbill left on the table, a copy of the one the man next to you is reading. It is a pamphlet printed by the proprietor Pasqua Rosi, titled The Virtue of the Coffee Drink. This is the perfectly eccentric marketing of the era. You scan the page, your eyebrows climbing higher with each claim. This strange black drink, it proclaims, aids digestion, quickens the spirit, and makes the heart lightsome. It is, the pamphlet insists, a cure for scurvy, gout, and even the dreaded king's evil. It suppresseth fumes exceedingly, and will prevent drowsiness and make one fit for business. You chuckle quietly to yourself. It seems this Pasqua Rosi is selling not just a drink, but a miracle cure dot as you sit there, the warmth of the coffee spreading through you. You ponder a question that future historians will debate for centuries. Why are all these men here? Is it truly for the supposed health benefits? The hope of curing their gout with a bitter brew? Is it merely the novelty of it all? A fashionable new trend to be seen partaking in? Or is it something deeper? You look around the room. You see merchants quietly negotiating a shipping contract. You see a man scribbling furiously in a notebook, likely a clerk or a writer. You see others poring over the latest news from the continent. No one is shouting. No one is drunk. You realize the genius of Pasqua Rosi's establishment is not just the drink, but the environment it creates. It's a public space dedicated to sobriety and clarity. You finish your dish of coffee. The taste is still foreign on your tongue, but the feeling it has given you of being alert, calm, and focused is undeniably pleasant. You feel as if you have been let in on a secret. You have found an oasis of thought in the midst of London's beautiful chaos. As you step back out into the noise and the damp of St. Michael's Alley, you know with absolute certainty that you will be back. This strange place, with its even stranger drink, has an undeniable pull. It has been a few weeks since your first encounter with the strange, bitter drink from the Levant. The memory of that initial shock to your taste buds has faded, replaced by a craving not just for the drink, but for the world it inhabits. And so you find yourself returning, making your way through the familiar London streets with a specific destination in mind. You are no longer just a curious visitor. You are becoming a regular. You push open the door to the coffeehouse in St. Michael's Alley, and the now familiar scent of roasting beans and the quiet hum of activity wash over you like a comforting tide. This time, you notice the ritual at the door. A man, who you assume is an apprentice of the proprietor Pasqua Rossi, collects a single penny from each person who enters. This small, humble coin is your price of admission. For 1 penny, you are granted access to the warmth, the stimulating drink, and most importantly, the company and conversation within for as long as you wish to stay. It is this simple transaction that is already earning these establishments a nickname on the streets of London: penny universities. It's a beautifully ironic title. For the price of a cheap newspaper, you can enter a hall of learning, more dynamic and current than the hallowed, dusty halls of Oxford or Cambridge. As you step inside, your eyes are drawn to a large sheet of paper, a broadside, tacked prominently to the dark wood-paneled wall for all to see. It is titled, in bold print, "The Rules and Orders of the Coffeehouse." You drift closer, your curiosity piqued. This is not just a place of business. It is a place with a manifesto. You begin to read the rhyming couplets, which lay out the code of conduct for this new type of social space. It is, in its own way, a revolutionary document. Enter, sirs, freely, but first, if you please, peruse our civil rules, which are these. It begins. The very first rule sets a tone that is almost shocking in London's rigidly class-conscious society. First, gentry, tradesmen, all are welcome hither, and may without affront sit down together. You look around the room and see this. Ideal in practice. You see a man in a fine silk waistcoat, deep in conversation with another, in the simple, sturdy wool of a merchant. It's a quiet but radical proposition, that here, in the coffeehouse, a man is judged not by his station, but by the quality of his conversation and the civility of his conduct. You continue down the list. There are rules against swearing, which would be an impossible law to enforce in any tavern. There is a strict prohibition on quarreling. No wager may be made. No loud speech, no brawl, nor quarrel be. The goal is clear: to create a sanctuary for calm and reasoned discourse. One rule makes you smile, a testament to the turbulent times you live in. No one is to speak ill of the state in a loud voice, or of Scripture. It's a quiet acknowledgement that while this is a place for debate, open sedition is bad for business. It's a gentle reminder to keep your revolutionary ideas to a low murmur. As you turn from the list, you notice another curious detail: a small brass box on the serving counter with the letters TIPS etched into the lid. A fellow patron, noticing your gaze, leans over and quietly explains that patrons can drop a coin in to ensure prompt service. This gratuity pool is shared among the staff to ensure everyone gets their dish of coffee quickly, and while it's still hot, you ponder this little innovation, a system built on shared goodwill. It's an eccentric and efficient little custom, and you wonder if it might catch on elsewhere. With the rules understood, you pay your penny, get your dish of coffee, and find a seat. Now, you observe the penny university in action, and you contemplate. A question that historians, too, will debate. How truly democratic is this space? You see the mix of social classes, just as the rules promised. But you also notice the unwritten rules, the subtle currents of social hierarchy that even these printed words cannot erase. The wealthy shipowner holds court at the largest table near the fire. The struggling poet sits in the corner, observing, more than speaking. A common laborer, though welcomed by the rules on the wall, would likely find the intellectual chatter of Latin phrases and complex financial terms as intimidating and foreign as the king's court dots. So perhaps it is not a university for everyone, you muse, but it is, undeniably, a mixing ground unlike any other. Here, a scholar like you can overhear the latest prices for nutmeg from the East Indies, directly from the merchant who imports it. A physician can debate the latest theories of the human body with a member of the Royal Society. It is a place where information, the true currency of the age, is exchanged freely. The coffee itself, this bitter black brew, is merely the fuel. The real product is connection and knowledge. You settle in, the warmth of the ceramic dish seeping into your hands. The room is a perfect blend of sensory inputs. The rich smell of coffee, mingling now with the sweet scent of tobacco from the clay pipes some men are smoking. The low hum of a dozen different conversations, none loud enough to intrude. The soft rustle of paper as men read the latest news from the continent. You are a student in this strange new university. You have paid your tuition, you have read the rules, and now you are simply here to learn. You take another sip from your dish of coffee. The initial bitterness that once shocked your palate has become an old friend, a familiar signal that your mind is about to sharpen. You have learned the rhythms of this place, the ebb and flow of its conversations. You lean back against the hard wooden bench, letting the unique symphony of the coffeehouse wash over you. It is here, in the quiet spaces between sips, that the real education of the Penny University begins. You close your eyes for a moment, just to listen. From a table to your left, a conversation unfolds in confident, measured tones. The words that drift over are not about weather or local gossip. You hear planetary ellipses, the nature of a vacuum, and a hushed, excited mention of a new kind of mathematics for calculating motion. You open your eyes and see a small group of gentlemen, their faces illuminated by the candlelight, leaning over a diagram sketched hastily on a piece of paper. You recognize one of them from a public lecture, a member of the recently formed Royal Society. Here, in the informal comfort of the coffeehouse, they are debating the very architecture of the cosmos, fueled by caffeine and intellectual fervor. This is a well-known historical fact. These new establishments served as the unofficial clubhouses for the scientific revolution, places where the radical ideas of men like Isaac Newton and Robert Boyle could be discussed and disseminated away. From the rigid formalities of the university, your attention is then pulled in a completely different direction by a more boisterous, though still not unruly, group near the back. Their language is a different lexicon entirely. They speak of cargo manifests, letters of marque, and acceptable risk. These are the city's shipowners, merchants, and financiers, the men whose fortunes are tied to the great wooden vessels sailing to the far corners of the known world. They are not debating the heavens. They are calculating the odds of a ship returning safely from the pirate-infested waters of the Caribbean. They are, in essence, inventing the modern concept of insurance right before your eyes. You overhear one of them say, "The best news on shipping is always to be had at Edward Lloyd's place on Lombard Street." This comment sparks a thought, hinting at a debate future historians will have. The gradual specialization of these coffeehouses. You realize they are not all the same. Some, like this one, are for general intellectual chatter, but others are already becoming hubs for specific trades and political factions. A Whig coffeehouse, a Tory one for stock jobbers, another for poets. Suddenly, the door bursts open. letting in a gust of damp London air and a man with an air of frantic importance. He is followed by a weary-looking sailor, still dressed in the rough, practical garb of a seaman, blinking in the dim light. The first man, you realize, is what the regulars call a kidnapper or a runner. It's a curious, but vital, profession. These men are hired by the coffeehouse proprietors to patrol the docks and be the first to meet arriving ships. Their job is to get the freshest news from the sailors, be it a naval victory, a change in commodity prices in a foreign port, or a political upheaval on the continent, and bring it back to the coffeehouse before anyone else. Information is a commodity here, and freshness is everything. The proprietor quickly places a steaming dish of coffee and a clay pipe packed with tobacco in front of the sailor. Thus compensated, the mariner begins his tale. The entire room falls into a hushed silence. He speaks of a storm off the coast of France, the new taxes being levied in the American colonies, and the price of sugar in Jamaica. You are witnessing a living newspaper, a real-time intelligence report for the price of a penny. It's far more immediate and exciting than the printed news sheets, which are often days or weeks out of date. Amidst all this talk of science and commerce, your eye catches a solitary figure. He is a young man, his coat slightly frayed at the cuffs, sitting by himself in a corner. His coffee has grown cold, completely ignored at his elbow. He is not engaged in debate or listening to the sailor's report. He is writing his quill, scratching furiously across a small bound notebook. His brow is furrowed in concentration, his lips moving silently as he searches for a word. He could be a poet struggling with a line, a pamphleteer crafting a fiery political argument, or a student trying to capture the flurry of ideas buzzing around him. He is an island of pure creation in an ocean of transaction and debate, a reminder that these spaces nurture the arts as well as the sciences. You can't help but smile at the gentle irony of it all. A man trying to compose a sonnet about eternal beauty, while 3 feet away, another man calculates the profit margin on a shipment of salt cod. You take another sip of your coffee. The room feels like an engine. It is a place where the raw materials of information and intellect are brought in, and the finished products are new ideas, new businesses, and new art. You feel a palpable sense of being at the nexus of your age. You are not just in a room where people are drinking a strange, bitter liquid. You are in one of the crucibles where the modern world is being forged. Feeling the intellectual energy of the room, you find yourself reaching for your own small notebook and quill. An idea has sparked in your own mind, and this, you know, is exactly the right place to bring it into the world. The afternoon is beginning its slow fade into evening as you step out of the coffeehouse and back into the lively chaos of the London street. The door closes behind you, muffling the quiet hum of conversation, but the feeling of the place lingers. Your mind feels sharp, orderly, and calm, as if every thought has been neatly filed away. The effects of your last dish of coffee are still with you, a pleasant, focused warmth that has nothing to do with the temperature of the drink. As you walk, the air begins to fill with the sounds of London, winding down its workday and winding up for its evening recreation. And the sound that grows loudest is the roar spilling from the open doors of a tavern on the corner. You pause for a moment, simply observing. It is a world you know well, a world you have participated in more times than you can count. But now, seen through the lens of your coffeehouse experiences, it seems alien. The smell hits you first, a thick, sweet, and sour wave of spilled ale, sweat, and sawdust sprinkled on the floor to soak up. Well, you'd rather not think about it. It's the polar opposite of the clean, invigorating scent of roasting coffee and paper. Then there is the noise. It is not a symphony. It is a cacophony, a roar of slurred laughter, the off-key bellowing of a sea shanty, the sharp crack of a dice game ending in a curse, and the overarching, deafening din of dozens of men all talking. At once, none of them listening. You think of the conversation you just overheard between the two members of the Royal Society, their quiet, respectful debate over the nature of light. You imagine them trying to have that same conversation in here. It would be impossible. Any attempt at nuanced thought would be drowned in a sea of alcohol-fueled bravado and sentimentality. Business, you reflect, is hardly better. You've seen. Contracts signed in taverns, the signatures shaky, the terms agreed upon in a haze of drunken optimism, only to be bitterly regretted in the sober light of morning. Here, debate does not lead to enlightenment. It leads to arguments, and arguments too often lead to fists. You contrast this scene with the one you just left. In the coffeehouse, the air was still, the light was clear, and the conversations were. A currency of ideas. Here, in the tavern, the air is thick with smoke and aggression. The light is dim and greasy, and the only currency being loudly exchanged is boasts and insults. A core historical truth dawns on you with the force of a revelation. You are witnessing a battle for the soul of London's social life. For centuries, the alehouse has been the undisputed king of public gathering places. It was the only alternative to the church or the home. But now, a challenger has arrived. This quiet, unassuming coffeehouse is offering a profound alternative. It offers a different kind of social lubricant. Alcohol, you realize, is a lubricant that works by dissolving inhibitions, but it also dissolves precision, memory, and reason. It encourages men to forget their troubles, but also to forget their wits. Coffee is something else entirely. It is a social lubricant that sharpens. It encourages men to be wittier, more focused, more articulate. It doesn't dissolve the mind. It polishes it. The coffeehouse is a place for building things up a business, an argument, a theory. The tavern, too often, is a place for tearing things down. As you stand there, you notice something else about the two establishments. A stark and curious difference. You scan the faces in the smoky din of the tavern, a few barmaids, but otherwise entirely men. You think back to the coffeehouse, also entirely men. You realize you have never seen a respectable woman partaking in a dish of coffee. They are, for reasons you don't fully understand, exclusively male domains. A historical curiosity you'd recently heard about comes to mind. A satirical pamphlet circulating titled The Women's Petition Against Coffee. You overheard two merchants laughing about it earlier. The petition jokingly claimed that coffee was making London's men weak and sterile, that they spent all their time in coffeehouses talking politics and news, coming home only to chatter, instead of attending to their husbandly duties. You smile. It seems the rise of this sober new world is not without its domestic detractors. However comically they frame it, your mind turns to another question, one that future scholars will debate. Is this new space truly a temple of sobriety? You think of the thick, sweet-smelling clouds of pipe tobacco that hung in the air of the coffeehouse, sometimes so dense it was hard to see the other side of the room. Men would tap their clay pipes on the tables, leaving little piles of ash next to their empty coffee dishes. Perhaps, you muse, they have simply traded one vice for another. They have swapped the drunkenness of the body for the stimulation of the mind, and the calming clouds of tobacco for the chaos of ale. It is not a world of saints, but it is, you conclude, a more productive world. A man full of coffee and tobacco can still read a balance sheet, draft a poem, or debate the laws of physics. A man full of ale can do little more than sing, sleep, or fight. Your path is clear now. The tavern, with its sticky floors and muddled thoughts, represents the past. The coffeehouse, with its quiet focus and stimulating conversation, represents the future. You were meant to meet a colleague this evening, and the default location would have been a place just like this one. You decide, right then and there, to send a message to him. You will not meet at the tavern. You will meet at the coffeehouse, where your ideas can be as clear and as potent as the strange black drink you have come to love. You find that you have become something of a coffeehouse connoisseur. You know that the establishment in St. Michael's Alley is perfect for general news and observing the flow of the city. But today, your purpose is different. You are seeking a more specific kind of conversation. And so, you make your way to Change Alley, a narrow lane humming with a different kind of energy. Here, the coffeehouses are not just petty universities. They are the unofficial headquarters of London's burgeoning financial world. You choose a place called Garway's, known for the seriousness of its clientele and the quality of its information. The moment you step inside, you can feel the difference. The air is still thick with coffee and tobacco smoke, but it's mingled with the scent of ink, old paper, and sealing wax. There are fewer idle dreamers here, and more men of intense, focused purpose. You see large maps spread across tables, weighted down at the corners by coffee dishes. You see men with ledgers open, their brows furrowed in calculation. This is a workshop for empire builders. You order your dish of coffee and find a quiet corner from which to observe the grand machinery of progress at work. At a large central table, a man with startlingly intense eyes and long, unkempt hair is holding court. He is not loud, but he speaks with a quiet authority that draws others near. He uses a piece of charcoal to sketch frantic diagrams on a sheet of butcher's paper, talking of forces and bodies in motion, of light itself being a particle. You do not know his name. You cannot possibly grasp the new kind of mathematics he is describing, but you recognize the unmistakable fire of genius. You are watching a man who the world will one day know as Isaac Newton, and he is using the coffeehouse as his personal lecture hall, testing his revolutionary ideas on a small, caffeinated audience before unleashing them on the world. Your gaze drifts to another table. A thoughtful, well-dressed man is unrolling a vast architectural drawing. It shows the cross-section of a magnificent church, crowned with a dome so grand and ambitious it takes your breath away. This is Master Christopher Wren, and he is patiently explaining his vision for the new St. Paul's Cathedral to a group of skeptical city aldermen. The future skyline of London, rising from the ashes of the Great Fire, is being debated and defended right here. Its foundations laid not in stone, but in conversation over a table sticky with spilled coffee. This scene prompts you to reflect on a question that will one day occupy historians. Do these places create genius, or do they simply attract it? Is there some magic in the bean itself that sparks these world-changing ideas? Or are these brilliant men simply seeking a convenient place to work and debate? As you watch Master Wren calmly counter an objection from a portly alderman, you conclude that the two are inseparable. The coffeehouse did not create Wren's genius, but it provides the perfect stage for it at neutral ground, away from the formalities of court, where he can persuade and reason with the men who hold the city's purse strings. It provides the fuel, the focus, and the forum. Later in the week, your business takes you to a different establishment, Edward Lloyd's Coffee House on Lombard Street. Here, the specialization is absolute. The talk is of nothing but the sea. The clientele is exclusively ship owners, captains, and the financiers who back their voyages. You watch a practice that is both stunningly simple and revolutionary. Man seeking to insure his ship and cargo for a voyage to the Americas will post a description of the vessel, its contents, and its destination on a slip of paper. Wealthy men wishing to take on a portion of the risk will, one by one, step forward and write their name underneath the description, indicating the share of the potential loss they are willing to cover. You are watching the birth of the world's greatest insurance market, Lloyd's of London. It is not a grand institution with a marble facade. It is a series of handwritten signatures on a piece of paper, a community of trust built in a room. That smells of coffee and the sea dot suddenly, the proprietor of Garways rings a small bell, calling for attention. He announces the afternoon's main event, an auction. But this is no ordinary auction. This is an eccentric and uniquely thrilling tradition known as an auction by candle. A small ship's cargo of brandy, recently arrived from France, is the prize. The proprietor drives a nail into a tallow candle, about an inch from the top, and lights the wick. The bidding begins. It is fast, a flurry of shouted numbers. Your eyes are fixed on the tiny, dancing flame. As it burns lower and lower, nearing the nail, the bidding becomes more frantic. The tension in the room is thick enough to taste. A final desperate bid is shouted. A moment later, the flame melts the wax around the nail. The inch-long section of candle falls, and the flame is extinguished. The last man to shout a price is the winner. It is a wonderfully strange and dramatic way to conduct business. You lean back, a sense of awe washing over you. In a single week, you have witnessed the foundations being laid for modern science, architecture, and finance. These are not just places to drink a beverage. They are incubators. They are the city's living, breathing brain, processing information, forging connections, and generating the big ideas that will define the coming century. And it is all powered by a humble, bitter bean that was discovered, so the story goes, by a flock of dancing goats. The year is drawing to a close, and the festive spirit of Christmas in 1675 has settled over London, or at least it has tried to. Even in the warmth and familiar comfort of your favorite coffeehouse, there is a subtle tension in the air, a nervous energy that mingles with the usual scent of coffee and tobacco. The political winds have been shifting, and the king, Charles II, has grown increasingly wary of the public's mood. Your sanctuary of sober thought, you fear, is seen by the crown as something far more dangerous. You are midway through a dish of coffee, listening to a quiet debate on the merits of a new play, when the door swings open with a little more force than usual. A man hurries in, holding a single sheet of paper, his face pale. He is a runner, but he doesn't carry the usual shipping news or gossip from the continent. This is a freshly printed broadside, smelling of wet ink, bearing the imposing seal of the king. A hush falls over the room as the man begins to read aloud. The words of the proclamation, a well-documented historical fact of the era, land like stones thrown into a calm pond. His Majesty, the man reads, his voice trembling slightly, has thought it fit and necessary that the retailing of coffee and the keeping of public houses for that purpose may be put down and suppressed. The proclamation goes on, accusing these very establishments of being places where diverse, false, malicious, and scandalous reports are devised and spread abroad, to the defamation of His Majesty's government and to the disturbance of the peace and quiet of the realm. It declares that all licenses for coffeehouses are to be revoked, and all such houses are to be shut down and closed by January 10th. A collective intake of breath is the only sound in the room. Shock quickly curdles into a quiet, simmering anger. You look around at the faces of the men you have come to know. The merchant whose entire business relies on the shipping news he gathers here. The scholar whose theories are sharpened by the debates he has at his usual table. The financier whose syndicates are formed over handshakes and coffee. Their clubhouse, their office, their university is being outlawed. A deep and profound irony settles over you. The king is not afraid of the taverns, where men get drunk and belligerent, their minds clouded with ale. In fact, a population muddled by alcohol is far easier to govern than a population whose minds are sharpened by coffee. The king isn't afraid of drunkenness. He is afraid of sobriety. He is afraid of clear-headed men gathering to quietly discuss the news of the day and, inevitably, the performance of their government. The proclamation blames coffeehouses for spreading false reports, but you know the king's real fear is that. They are hubs for spreading true ones. A man at your table, a wealthy trader with a reputation for bluntness, scoffs into his coffee dish. Defamation of his government? He says in a low, furious voice. What he means is that his friends who own the vineyards and the alehouses are complaining that their profits are down. This sparks the very debate that historians will ponder for centuries. Is this a political act, driven by a genuine fear of sedition? Or is it an economic one? A monarch bowing to the pressure of the powerful alcohol lobby, the vintners and brewers who are losing their customers to this fashionable new drink. Another man argues the king has a point. Free and open. Discussion of state affairs is, by its very nature, a threat to the power of an absolute monarch. The conversation is no longer about science or literature. It is about survival. In the days that follow, a strange thing happens. This is the curious, almost comical part of the story. The king's attempt to suppress the coffeehouses has the opposite effect. They become more popular and more crowded than ever before. To sit in a coffeehouse is now a small act of defiance, a quiet political statement. The conversations are more animated, the sense of community stronger. The threat has not killed them. It has made them essential. Patrons who once took these spaces for granted now see them for what they are. Vital centers of commerce, information, and liberty. The public outcry is immediate and overwhelming. Petitions are drafted and circulated, signed by thousands of merchants, scholars, and tradesmen. The city's most powerful men, who rely on the coffeehouses to conduct their business, make their displeasure known at court. They whisper in the king's ear that this proclamation will do more to disrupt the peace and prosperity of the realm than any seditious pamphlet ever could. The pressure builds, a quiet, relentless storm of polite, reasoned, and caffeinated opposition. Then, just days before the January 10th deadline is set to fall, a new proclamation appears. The news spreads through the city like wildfire. You are sitting in this very coffeehouse, the atmosphere thick with a kind of gallows humor, when a man bursts in, waving the new sheet of paper, a broad grin on his face. The king has relented. Citing the humble petition and advice of his privy council, he has suspended his previous order. The coffeehouses are saved. A wave of relief so profound it is almost silent washes over the room. There is no loud cheering, for that would be unseemly. Instead, there is a collective, contented sigh. Men nod to each other, a quiet gesture of shared victory. The clinking of coffee dishes seems, for a moment, like a triumphant toast. You take a long, slow sip from your own dish. It tastes different now. It tastes of victory. It is no longer just a bitter, stimulating drink. It is the taste of freedom. The king, in his fear, tried to crush this quiet revolution, and in doing so, he only managed to prove to everyone just how powerful and how necessary it had truly become. The years have been kind to you and to London. The scare of the king's proclamation is now a distant, amusing memory. A story you tell to younger men to remind them that the simple right to sip a bitter drink in peace was once a hard-won victory. You are no longer the wide-eyed scholar, tentatively pushing open the door to a strange new world. You are Arthur, a seasoned and respected merchant, and the coffeehouse is no longer a novelty. It is an indispensable tool of your trade and a non-negotiable part of your daily ritual. Your day begins here. Before you even go to your warehouse or the exchange, you walk the familiar path to your preferred coffeehouse, not Garway's for finance or Lloyd's for shipping, but a comfortable, familiar place where the proprietor knows your name. The room itself has aged gracefully along with its patrons. The dark wooden benches have been worn smooth by years of use, their surfaces gleaming with a soft patina. The tables bear the faint, carved initials of men long gone, ghosts of conversations past. The smell of coffee is no longer just in the air. It feels baked into the very wood and plaster of the building, a permanent feature of the architecture. Take your usual seat, and a dish of coffee is placed before you without you having to ask. You notice the changes, the slow evolution of the ritual. When you first started coming here, the drink was served black and uncompromisingly bitter. Now, every table is adorned with a bowl of sugar, the cones of which are chipped at by patrons with small metal nippers. Some men have even taken to the strange new habit of adding a splash of hot milk, a practice you still find slightly suspicious, a dilution of the coffee's true, bracing character. You realize with a gentle, ironic smile, becoming an old-timer, quietly lamenting the ways of the youth. You look around the bustling room and reflect on the sheer proliferation of these places. A well-known fact of your time is that what began as a single shop in St. Michael's Alley has exploded into a citywide phenomenon. There are now hundreds, perhaps even thousands, of coffeehouses in London, one on nearly every street. They have woven themselves so completely into the fabric of the city that you, like many other merchants, now use your favorite coffeehouse as your mailing address. It is more reliable than your own home, as you are here so often, and the proprietor dutifully holds your letters for you. It has become a public utility, as essential as the water pump or the parish church. The eccentric customs of the coffeehouse have also solidified into established etiquette. A young boy, a Mercury, enters crying out the sale of the latest edition of Mr. Addison and Mr. Steele's new paper, The Spectator. A gentleman at a large table buys a copy, and as is the custom, he does not hoard it for himself. He begins to read one of the essays aloud in a clear, projecting voice for the benefit of the entire room. When he is done, he will fold the paper and leave it on the table for any other patron to read. It is a shared library, a communal pool of information that everyone contributes to and partakes from. News is not a private possession here. It is a public good. Yet, as you listen to the essay on the virtues of modesty, your merchant's mind considers a subtle shift, a topic of quiet debate among the patrons. While the newspapers are shared, other information is not. You know for a fact that a certain coffeehouse near the stock exchange has an exclusive subscription to a Dutch financial newsletter, and the proprietor charges an extra penny to those who wish to read it. The penny university, you muse, is beginning to commercialize its curriculum. What started as a beautifully democratic ideal, all information for the price of one coffee, is slowly evolving. The most valuable information now costs extra. It is an inevitable, if slightly sad, evolution. A young man, fresh from the countryside by the look of his clothes and his wide, slightly overwhelmed eyes, takes a seat nearby. He cautiously sips his first ever dish of coffee, and the predictable grimace of shock and distaste flits across his face. You watch, amused, as he hastily adds not one, but 3 large chunks of sugar to his dish, stirring vigorously. You catch his eye and give him a small, encouraging nod. You were him once. Every man in this room was him. They have all passed through that bitter gateway to become a part of this caffeinated society. The coffeehouse is no longer a place you visit. It is a part of the architecture of your life. It is where you meet your clients, where you hire your clerks, where you catch up on the affairs of the world, where you read your mail, and where you simply find a precious hour of focused calm before the day's chaos begins. The novelty has worn off, and in its place is a deep, abiding necessity. The revolution that you witnessed in your youth is over. It won, and now this extraordinary ritual has become the most ordinary and essential part of a Londoner's day. Your success as a merchant now requires you to travel, to cross the English Channel and engage with your counterparts on the continent. It is a necessary, if sometimes tedious, part of your life. But wherever you go, From the bustling ports of France to the grand imperial cities of the Holy Roman Empire, you carry your daily ritual with you. Your first task upon arriving in any new city is not to find your lodgings or your business associates, but to find a coffeehouse. You are a creature of habit, and you are curious to see how this London institution has been translated into other languages. Your first stop is Paris. You find a cafe, as they call it here, in a fashionable street. From the outside, it looks similar enough, but the moment you step through the door, you know you are in a different world. The London Coffeehouse is a study in dark wood and modest functional utility. This Parisian cafe is a performance. Gilt mirrors line the walls, reflecting the light from ornate chandeliers. The tables are not simple oak, but small, round marble-topped affairs. The men inside are dressed with a certain flair, a theatrical elegance that you find both impressive and slightly frivolous. You order your coffee en café. You practice in your mind, and it arrives strong, black, and in a delicate porcelain cup rather than a sturdy earthen dish. You settle in to observe, as is your habit. The atmosphere is not one of quiet, methodical business. It is electric with passionate, rapid-fire debate. These men are not discussing shipping rates or the price of indigo. They are debating philosophy. You hear the names Voltaire and Rousseau batted about like shuttlecocks. They talk of the rights of man, the social contract, the nature of liberty itself. It is thrilling, but as a practical man of commerce, you find it all a bit abstract. Their arguments are like beautiful, intricate smoke rings. Fascinating to watch, but dissolving into nothing when you try to grasp them. This, you realize, is the Parisian interpretation. The coffeehouse is a political and philosophical theater, a hotbed not of commerce, but of ideas that you suspect might one day become quite revolutionary. Your business then takes you further east, a long and dusty journey to the grand imperial capital of Vienna. Here, the transformation of your beloved institution is even more astonishing. You find a cafe house in a grand square, and stepping inside feels like entering the drawing room of a nobleman. The roar of Paris and the industrious hum of London are replaced by a serene, almost reverent hush. The seats are not hard benches, but plush, velvet-upholstered armchairs you can sink into. The dark, polished wood gleams, and in the corner, a small trio of musicians plays a gentle melody on their strings. A waiter in a smart uniform approaches, and you order your coffee. It arrives on a silver tray. Next to the cup is a tall, elegant glass of cool water, an unheard-of luxury. To your utter surprise, a small, crescent-shaped pastry on a little plate. You ask the proprietor, a jovial man with a magnificent mustache, about the origins of his establishment. He beams with pride and tells you the historical tale, now legendary in the city. Coffee, he explains, was a gift from the Turks. When the Ottoman army was defeated at the siege of Vienna in 1683, they fled in a hurry, leaving behind hundreds of sacks of strange green beans. A clever Polish officer named Kolchitsky, who had lived among the Turks and knew their secret, was granted the sacks and opened the city's first coffeehouse, the Blue Bottle. And the pastry? You point to the crescent-shaped delight. That, the proprietor explains, is a kipferl. A baker created it to celebrate the victory, shaping it like the crescent moon on the Ottoman flag. So now, every morning, the Viennese can sip the Turkish drink while symbolically devouring their defeated foe. You find this eccentric and delightful story marvelous. You take a bite of the buttery, flaky pastry and a sip of the rich coffee. It is a combination of sublime and decadent pleasure dot as the string music swells. You lean back in your velvet chair and ponder the question that has been brewing in your mind throughout your travels. How can the same being, the same basic idea, create three such radically different worlds? In London, the coffeehouse is a place of work, a functional extension of the office and the stock exchange. In Paris, it is an intellectual battlefield, a stage for the war of ideas. And here in Vienna, it has become a temple of leisure, an elegant, comfortable second home. You realize the coffeehouse is a mirror. It does not impose its own character on a city. It reflects the character of the city it serves. London's industry, Paris's intellect, Vienna's leisurely grandeur, all are perfectly mirrored in their respective houses of coffee. You feel a sense of worldly appreciation for these continental variations. The Parisian passion is stimulating, and the Viennese comfort is undeniably seductive. But a part of you, the pragmatic London merchant, feels a pang of longing for the familiar no-nonsense hum of your own coffeehouse, for the rustle of shipping news and the straightforward talk of trade. These places are wonderful for a visit, but you know you could never get any real work done here. Your heart and your ledger book belong in London. The world of Arthur, of candlelight and quill pens, of royal proclamations and auctions by candle flame, begins to soften and fade like a dream upon waking. The clatter of cobblestones gives way to a gentle, familiar hum, the scent of coal smoke, and damp wool is replaced by the clean, quiet air of a sleeping home. You are no longer Arthur, the London merchant, observing the birth of an era. You are you, and you are in your kitchen. The hour is late, or perhaps very early. The world outside is still and quiet, and you have decided to make a cup of coffee. The ritual is second nature to you now, a piece of muscle memory. You open a cupboard and pull out your favorite mug, the one with the satisfying weight and the handle that fits your hand just so. You open a bag of beans, and the rich, dark aroma, the very scent that has been the thread through our entire story, blooms in the quiet air. This is the same fundamental fragrance that shocked the monks, enriched the merchants of Mocha, and drew the first curious Londoners into that strange new establishment. For you, it is simply the comforting smell of a familiar pleasure. You spoon the beans into a grinder, and with the press of a button, a machine does in 5 seconds what once took a monk with a heavy stone half an hour to accomplish. The loud, brief whirring cuts through the silence, a momentary burst of modern efficiency. You measure the grounds, fill a chamber with water, and press another button. A gentle hiss begins, a soft gurgling sound as the machine begins its work. This is the final domestic evolution of the bean. What was once a public performance, a drink only consumed in the company of others, has completed its journey. It has come home. This historical shift, from the public coffeehouse to the private kitchen, was the last great step in the bean's conquest of the world. As you wait, leaning against the counter in the soft glow of a single low light, the ghosts of our story gather in your quiet kitchen. You think of Kaldi, the young goat herder, standing on a green hill in ancient Ethiopia, utterly bewildered by his dancing flock. You picture Amir on the hot, dusty docks of Mocha, fiercely guarding. The secret of a being that he knew, in his heart, could never truly be contained. You see Arthur, your old friend, taking his first bitter, shocking sip in a dim London coffeehouse, his mind slowly awakening to a new kind of clarity. You see the passionate philosophers of Paris, planning revolutions over porcelain cups, and the comfortable burghers of Vienna, listening to string music while enjoying a pastry shaped like a vanquished crescent moon. They are all here, in the lineage of the coffee in your cup. The centuries of travel, of trade, of espionage, and of inspiration are all swirling in the steam that now rises from your coffee pot. You look at the bag the beans came from. It might have words on it like single origin or fair trade, with tasting notes promising hints of chocolate, citrus, or stone fruit. You have to smile. We are still just as obsessed, just as reverent about this being as our ancestors were. We have simply invented a new, more scientific-sounding language to express our devotion, a far cry from Pasqua Rosi's pamphlets, promising a cure for gout, but born of the same desire to celebrate this remarkable drink. You pour the dark, fragrant liquid into your mug. You are taking part in a ritual that has been refined into 1,000 eccentric forms. Perhaps you add a splash of milk and a spoonful of sugar, a Viennese luxury. Perhaps you drink it black and strong, a Londoner's brew. Maybe you've used a complex espresso machine to create a rich crema or a simple pour-over cone to carefully control the infusion. Each method is its own little ceremony, the final, baroque expression of a process that began with simply throwing some beans in a fire. And now, you face the final personal debate. What is this coffee for? Are you drinking it to fuel a long night of work or study, a student in your own penny university? Are you preparing it to share with a friend, a partner, a moment of Parisian social connection? Is it a moment of pure, quiet, Viennese-style leisure? A small island of calm in a busy day? Or is it simply for you, a personal ritual that needs no other justification than the comfort it brings? The great historical question of the coffeehouse's purpose has now become your own. You hold the warm mug in your hands, the heat seeping into your palms. The grand narrative of empires and economies, of science and sedition, has come to rest right here. All of that history, all of those lives, all of that striving and discovery has culminated in this one simple, perfect, and peaceful moment. You bring the mug to your lips, and you take a sip. The journey is complete. The coffee has reached its final destination dot, and so the story of the first coffeehouses comes to a gentle close. The echoes of those bustling, smoke-filled rooms fade away, leaving only the quiet of your own peaceful space. The journey, which began on a sun-drenched hill with a flock of happy goats, has ended here with you holding a warm cup of comfort. All the frantic energy of commerce, the passionate fire of debate, the tension of royal decrees, all of it has resolved into this moment of profound and simple calm. Let the feeling of that warmth in your hands spread through your body. Feel it loosen the muscles in your shoulders, soften the thoughts in your mind. The story is over, and now there is only rest. Imagine all those historical figures, their work for the day now done. Arthur, the merchant, has balanced his ledgers and can finally rest his mind. The Viennese musician has packed away his violin, the sweet melodies still lingering in the air. The monks in their monastery are in a deep, peaceful, and well-earned sleep, their prayers for the night long finished. They have all found their peace, and now it is time for you to find yours. The journey of the bean was long and complicated, full of twists and turns, but your own journey tonight is very simple. It is a slow, gentle drift into a deep and comfortable sleep. There are no more facts to learn, no more dates to remember. There is only the soft weight of your blankets, the steady, rhythmic sound of your own breathing, and the feeling of safety that comes from being exactly where supposed to be. The world can wait. Its revolutions and its discoveries will all be there for you tomorrow. Tonight is just for you. It is a time for quiet, for stillness, and for letting go. Allow your eyelids to feel heavy, to close gently without any effort at all. You have listened to the story, and now it is time to become a part of the quiet at the end of the tale. You've reached the end of another cozy nappy tale. Sleep well, and remember, you're always welcome here. Sweet dreams, nappy friend.